Chapter 40, Weak Spot. Stop, Sonny whispered, closely watching the pack of scavengers through his shadow. The moment the word left his mouth, Nephice instantly summoned her sword. She scanned the area quickly, then looked back at him, a silent question in her gaze. Cassie, sensing the tension, froze in place, cautiously raising her staff. Sonny counted carefully, 1, 2, 3, 5. Damn it! These creatures looked like the weaker ones in the group, resembling the wounded scavenger he'd defeated earlier. However, these weren't as battered, and each appeared far more dangerous than the last one. There were at least 6 of them. There are 6 scavengers ahead on the path. They're slowly heading this way. Nephice stared toward the direction of the beasts, her expression cold and analytical. They finished with the corpse? Sonny paused to think, then shook his head. No, I don't think so, but maybe the carcass doesn't have enough left, and some of them were forced to leave without feeding. Nephice gave a slight nod and gestured toward a side path. We'll circle around them. The 3 sleepers moved quickly, veering off their course to avoid the approaching creatures. They pressed forward through the maze-like passageways of crimson coral, careful to remain quiet and en route. But over the next hour, they repeatedly had to veer off track, turning away from more scavenger patrols. Their path to the massive statue remained stubbornly distant. At one point, they paused to rest at a dead end, hidden behind coral ridges. They had no choice but to wait, as another group of monsters passed nearby, just out of sight along a winding tunnel. Sonny let out a long breath and shook his head. This isn't working. If we keep dodging like this, we'll never reach safety before sundown. Cassie was the first to speak up. Should we go back? It was a fair suggestion, but Sonny didn't want to agree. He felt reluctant, hesitant to give up. Nephice voiced his thoughts aloud, her expression unreadable. It will only be worse tomorrow. She was right. The longer they waited, the more scavengers would swarm the labyrinth. Then what do we do? He asked. Changing Star tilted her head slightly, thinking. Then she turned to Sonny. We fight. Fight? Face off against these terrifying creatures? Was she out of her mind? Sonny tried not to scoff as he replied. You're good with a sword, sure, but don't forget, these things outclass us. We can't survive a fight if there are too many. Nephice nodded slightly. We avoid the big groups, take out the small ones. Then she added, if we come across just 1 or 2, we stand a chance. Sonny opened his mouth to argue, but the logic in her words was hard to deny. Eventually, he sighed. All right. Nephice studied him for a moment before suddenly asking, did you examine the scavenger you killed? What kind of question was that? Caught off guard. Sonny shook his head. No. Back then, he'd been too preoccupied with surviving and avoiding the returning sea. Studying a corpse hadn't even crossed his mind. Wait, didn't teacher Julius say something about that? After a short silence, Nephice spoke again. Scavengers have 3 main vulnerabilities. First are the joints. Flexibility means weaker armor in those areas. Aim there, and you'll reduce their mobility and attack strength. Studying fallen monsters could help expose their weaknesses and strategies to beat them. It seemed obvious now. Sonny mentally kicked himself for not realizing sooner. Nephice continued. The second weak spot is where the torso connects to the carapace. A hit there can seriously damage them, but unless you manage to sever the spine, it won't be fatal. They'll still be able to fight. Sonny couldn't help noticing how much more at ease she seemed when talking about combat or legends. Her usual awkwardness faded away. Interesting. The third weak point is on the back, around the level of their eyes. There's a discolored indentation in the armor where the plates meet. The chitin there is thin. If pierced, it can reach the brain. That's a killing blow. That's great to know. But how's a human supposed to reach it? These things were over 2 meters tall. As if sensing his thoughts, Nephice added calmly. That weak spot is hard to reach. Their size, speed, and range make it nearly impossible to get behind them. She turned to him, her tone steady. If we face a lone scavenger, I'll act as bait. I'll force it to turn its back. When I do, you strike and kill it. Sunny swallowed hard. What if there are two? Nephi's paused, then said flatly, "Don't die." It wasn't long before they were forced to act on their plan. Behind them lay a stretch of winding passages with no alternate routes. Ahead was a small open space with only one other exit. From within that path, a single scavenger was slowly approaching. Sunny gave a quick rundown of the situation. Nephis didn't hesitate. "We fight in the clearing." She gently guided Cassie to the wall and helped her find a spot to rest. "Stay here. We'll come back." Then, after a brief thought, she added, "Soon." As she turned to leave, Cassie reached out and grabbed her hand. Her face was pale, strained with worry. "Neph, be careful, okay?" Nephis blinked, then offered a faint smile. Sure." With that, she and Sunny moved toward the clearing. By the time they arrived, the scavenger was moments from emerging. Sunny's shadow returned to him, creeping along the ground. Without needing to talk, he melted into the darkness, lying in wait. Nephis, meanwhile, walked calmly to the center of the clearing and stood poised, sword in hand, relaxed and prepared. Sunny, hidden in the shadows, repeated her earlier words in his head. "Don't die." A second later, the scavenger burst into view. Its beady eyes landed on Nephis, and it shrieked before charging. One of its massive pincers lunged forward with terrifying speed, slicing the air. Nephis stepped aside with grace, dodging the attack. She then leapt back and swung her sword midair, striking the joint of one of its front legs. Bright blue blood sprayed across the ground. The wound wasn't deep enough to stop it. Twisting rapidly, the monster swung at her from the side. Nephis blocked the blow at just the right angle, but the force sent her stumbling. Before she could recover, the other pincer crashed down from above. Rather than fight to regain her balance, she rolled over her hand, dodging again. Her sword struck out once more. But Sunny was no longer following the details. All that mattered was that through this dance of dodges and blows, Nephis had maneuvered the scavenger perfectly, its back now exposed to his hiding place. "This is it." Gritting his teeth, Sunny burst from the shadows. Before Nephis completed her next dodge, before the scavenger's pincer fell, before fear could grip him, he closed the distance in a single leap, landing atop the beast's carapace. Channeling his weight into one motion, he drove his hand forward. The azure blade materialized in his grip, swallowed by the shadow. A heartbeat later, the dark blade plunged into the discolored cavity in the scavenger's back. The chitin cracked. The sword sank deep. The monster convulsed, then collapsed. Sunny rolled off its back and hit the ground hard. Was that it? It was over already? Then, as if to answer, the spell's voice rang out. "You have slain an awakened creature, Carapace Scavenger. Your shadow grows stronger."